Yup, you read that title right. I am actually going to sit here and talk about 584 Thomas episodes. We're all adults here. We all know what Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends is. It was initially a beloved book series written by the Wilbur W. Awdry. It later spawned a TV show that became immensely successful. But with that success comes a longevity, with over 584 episodes to its name. But that doesn't mean it was consistently fantastic during that time. You ask anybody who's watched Thomas as religiously as I have, well, the show has its ups, downs, and all-arounds. But today, I'm going to sit down and review every single Thomas episode, from 1984's Thomas and Gordon up to 2020's Thomas and the Royal Engine. This is 24 seasons, 584 episodes total. Oh god. Now, I'm skipping a couple things. I am not talking about any of the direct-to-DVD movies or the Jack of the Pack spin-off. I actually did make videos on those, if you're curious. This is covering only episodes made for the TV shows. I might briefly recap the movies in between, because it might be necessary for TV content in the future, but that is the max I'm going to talk about them. But yeah, this should be interesting. I'm curious how long it's going to take for the quality to decline and how rapidly the show becomes, well, less like itself, as fans can have a couple different answers for when the show declines. But let's stop the dilly-dally. Let's just get started. The Down the Mine pilot. So, when I was working on this video, this thing was still lost, so, but I figured it'd be necessary to bring it up here. Anyways, it's charming. I like seeing the old models, and did some cool effects and stuff, and it was nice to hear some unheard Ringo Starr narration, and it's, charming. I like it. It's not getting ranked on its own, though. When we get to the actual episode, that's when I'll consider where Down the Mine is going on, the worst to best list, because this was just a what would a show like this look like, as opposed to being an actual, made for people to watch Thomas episode. So, let's get into the show for real, starting with... Here we are at the very beginning with Thomas and Gordon. Thomas, the cheeky lad he is, plays trick on Gordon, and Gordon wants revenge on him, so he takes him on the ride of his life. It just is such a fun, classic episode that really introduces you to Thomas and Gordon's tight personality quirks. The two are very entertaining as a rival here, and it's just really fun to see Thomas lose to Gordon here. I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. Perfect way to start off the show. Edward's introduced. He's sad because he's not being let out of the shed. Then his drivers let him out, Gordon makes fun of him, and then he has to help Gordon. This episode's fine. It's nothing horrible. I do enjoy it. Edward and Gordon are still entertaining characters, but as the first story of the franchise, it's just not as exciting. But I think that's a good thing in this case, because that means it only goes up from here. It's a rainy day on the island of Sodor, and Henry doesn't want to get his paint wet, so he stays in a tunnel. The people try their hardest to get him out, but to no avail. Topham just decides to brick him up in the tunnel because he's not worth the hassle. This is a really good introduction for Henry. There's a reason this episode is so iconic. Well, besides the fact Henry dies in the tunnel of starvation, but in general it shows his more full of himself attitude, and how locked in and selfish Henry can really be. It's a very entertaining one, and there's such a reason it's iconic, other than just, the news outlets making it look over-controlled. Easily my favorite of the season so far. Always a classic to go back to. Henry is still in that tunnel, and Gordon decides to make fun of him. However, something happens with his valve, and he breaks down. Edward tries to push his express, but he's too weak for it. So Henry's let out of the tunnel and redeems himself by helping Edward with the express. This is a really good redemption for Henry. I'm very glad it showed that Henry can still do some good. Really good one here. The big engines make fun of Thomas for being little. One night, Henry is feeling sick, and Thomas wants to pull his express train. He's really excited, but he goes without coupling himself up to the coaches, and then feels like a fool after he realizes it. I like this one quite a bit. Thomas is just so full of himself in this story that he just forgot the coaches. Like, how does he not feel those? It's a little dumb how he gets to it, but you know what? It's still really entertaining. Though I would argue this is probably the weakest of season 1, but the fact that the weakest so far is still pretty good, I think, is a testament for how good the show is so far.
Thomas the Tank Engine wouldn't stop being a nuisance.
What a way to introduce Thomas. So Thomas, in Thomas fashion, is complaining that he wants to see the world, so Edward decides he'll let him pull his trucks for the day. Thomas is not doing a very good job, however, and nearly gets into a crash with them. Another really good one here. It really shows Thomas's more careless nature, as the trucks are able to trick him pretty easily, and I like how selfish he is throughout this whole episode. Season 1, Thomas is just very funny. While working in the yards, as the events of last episode, Thomas sees James in a runaway with the troublesome trucks, and without any hesitation, he brings the breakdown train to save James. This is a really good redemption story for Thomas. After a couple of failures, Thomas has finally proven himself worthy, and now he has his branch line with his 2 lovely coaches, Annie and Clarabelle. Just such a great episode right here. Definitely a favorite of mine from season 1. After having a bad first day in the last episode, even though James has popped up in every episode before this, he tries his best to work harder, but he wishes Topham, which doesn't make him happy. Then he has to pull some coaches, and one of the coupling snaps after he's reckless, and some man has to give up his old bootlace. Honestly, it's just very funny to see this misfortune happen to James. He's got such an ego on him and wants to believe he's the coolest around, when really, he's not that cool. I really enjoy this one, and this is a great introduction for James. A very good highlight. James is shut up in the yard after the events of last episode, and then he is given a job to pull some troublesome trucks, which has its struggles, but James manages to pull through. This is a pretty good one that shows James' reliability, though I also feel like it rides off the coattails of Thomas's trucks too much looking back at it, but it's still good. Gordon and Henry are making fun of James still because, well, he's James and it's funny. Gordon boasts about how well he knows the line, only to have it backfire later, and then no one wants to ride with him anymore. So it's James's time to take the express, and he proves himself worthy, and Gordon respects him. A really good end to James's arc, though admittedly James's arc is a little too similar to Thomas's without the branch line stuff, but I still enjoy it. And I like the little dynamic James and Gordon have going on here. One of my favorite pairings in the show for sure. Very good episode right here. I enjoy it.
Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat. You need exercise.
Man, Thomas used to be such a douche. So Thomas loses his guard, and it's pretty boring, actually. After the string of stellar episodes, this one's just kind of there. Thomas wants to go fishing for some reason, but he is obviously not able to. But after some series of boiler issues and no water tower in sight, his driver and fireman decide to go fishing for water, only to have a fish in his water tanks. This is a charming story. I like it. It's kind of a funny thing to think that there's a fish swirling around in Thomas, and it's got a simplicity to it that I like. But I wouldn't call this episode, like, mind-blowing or anything. Just pretty good. Nice branch line Thomas story here. Terrence the Tractor is introduced, and Thomas hates him because he's a douche, and he thinks his caterpillars are ugly. Though it starts to snow, and Thomas hates the snowplow he's given. When he breaks it, he's like, oh, I don't need it, and then he does. So, who better to save him than Terrence the Tractor? And Thomas learns not to judge a book by his cover. This is a really classic episode here. Simple, Thomas is arrogant, and then needs to learn a lesson one, but it does introduce Terrence, who is a very likable character. Good episode. Thomas meets a bus named Verdi, and he talks about the time he got stuck in the snow last episode. That's a nice piece of continuity. So the two have a race to see who's better. This is all that really happens, but it's a lot of fun, honestly, seeing Thomas and Birdie go at each other. They're very entertaining characters to see clash, and I love just a simple little race story. Definitely a very classic episode for sure. I love this one. Gordon is being petty as always. He has trouble getting on a turntable because of a windy day, so he pulls his express backwards. James finds it funny, but then the wind is too light, so he spins around on the turntable, and all the big engines are fed up and go on strike. Wow, they are this petty that they are just willing to give up their only livelihood. I really enjoy this episode a lot. I love just seeing the big three engines' ego cloud their actual work line and what's actually important to do instead of just how they look and are treated, instead of just doing the work they're told. Very good one here, and I would say it's a very timeless episode. Like I said in the last episode, all the engines are on strike, and Edward is sent to do work, but all the big engines disrespect him. Topham seems to think we need a new tank engine, and holy crap, Percy's finally introduced. And him, along with Thomas and Edward, prove how the railway should be ran, leaving the three big engines left in the shed with no work at all. Just another classic episode here, what can I say? Engines are egotistical, so it's about actually doing what's important that puts them straight. Love this one here. Plus it has Percy. What's there not to love? The strike didn't go as planned, so the big three engines are back in the workforce. Meanwhile, Percy is sent to do much smaller work, though he forgets about a signal during his time waiting and nearly crashes into Gordon, and the big runaway pursues. It's a good one here. It's nice seeing Percy interact with someone in the cast who isn't Edward, and it's just a good showcase for who Percy is. Henry is feeling ill, and the Sodor coal isn't doing much for him, so his crew have to make sure to buy relish coal. Even though it's expensive, Topham knows that Henry is an efficient worker. Pretty good to see that he cares about his engines. Alright, episode. We all know this episode. It's the one where Henry crashes while pulling the flying kipper. You don't need me to tell you it's a masterpiece. It's definitely the most visually distinct episode of Season 1. It was a really good episode for Henry. The crash was awesome. And Henry now gains the design we all know and love him for. Great episode. What else is there to say? Gordon is bothered by Henry's constant whistling. However, when his valve breaks, Henry thinks it's really funny, like it is. However, the following day, Henry has some trouble with some school children who threw rocks into his express, so he blows some steam on them. I've always enjoyed this one quite a bit. Henry has a fun little rivalry here with Gordon, and it shows that Henry doesn't take crap from anyone, even children. And plus, the whole Gordon whistle scene was funny. Well, we're at the point that Toby is introduced into the TV series. Topham is on a trip with his family to see Toby's little railway, but it's at threat of shutting down. Unfortunately, it's his last day, and it makes you feel sad for the dude. But thankfully, Topham buys him, and we're left on a cliffhanger of what's to come. This one's really about soaking in Toby's nice little railway and just breathing in this new setting that isn't just the island of Sodor. I really enjoy this one a lot for how different it is from the rest of Season 1. This is an episode I think honestly deserves more attention than it usually gets because it presents something a little different for the show at this point in time, and of course it introduces the beloved Toby. On his branch line, Thomas runs into a police officer.
He wrote regular lawbreaker in his book.
So, it didn't go very well, as you can tell, and Topham remembers the events of Toby the tram engine and brings Toby to work on the island of Sodor after his line closed down. Very good episode here. It's just really funny to see Thomas get into a squabble with a police officer. After James insults Toby, he smashes into some tar tankers after losing focus. Very funny to see him get his comeuppance here. And also it sets up the Toby-James dynamic, which I really enjoy. Very good one. Gordon claims he's never had an accident and wants more respect around here, but when he hears he has to pull a freight train, he decides he wants to stall it, but he gets into a big accident by crashing into a pond. I love this episode. It's just Gordon in his prime, being full of himself, snooty, arrogant, and overall, it's just entertaining to see Gordon be so boastful and get properly what he deserves. Another one of the greatest of season 1 for sure. Classic. So we're finally at the real Down the Mine episode, and thankfully, it's very good. Thomas makes fun of Gordon after the events of last episode, but in traditional Thomas fashion of season 1, he gets his comeuppance after crashing into the mine, and, well, what can I say? I love seeing Thomas and Gordon's rivalry together. Though saying that, with the two both in disgrace, they actually seem to want to help each other instead of fighting each other. I really enjoy that character turn here, even if it's only followed up in, like, one episode after this. But I'm still glad to say it. Very good one. Classic episode. You can see why it was the one they chose for the pilot. And we end season 1 on the obligatory Christmas episode. Thomas and Toby have to save Mrs. Kindly, who's just introduced in this episode. It's really sweet and wholesome. I like it. Not one of the best episodes of the season, but again, cute little Christmas episodes always go a long way for me, so I really like it. Season 1 is a classic. What else is there to say? Definitely a little dated compared to some of the future seasons, but there's such an undescribable charm about seeing a series at its beginning, and Thomas is thankfully no different. Just about every episode's got something entertaining about it, and even the weaker ones, still pretty good. This is a strong start to any show. Now, is season 2 any better? There was a 1.5-year production gap, so who knows? It might be better, it might be worse. Only time will tell. And that time is right now, actually. I'm gonna start watching the season right now. So I'll tell you then. Here we are with season 2, and man, visually, the show has just improved. It looks so much more industrial. Though the story is Thomas is an egotist, and then Percy also becomes an egotist, and the two bicker and fight for a while, and then inevitably make up. This one is really made up of the character pairings. Thomas and Percy didn't really interact much last season, but they're really fun here in like a rivalry sense. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. A pretty good start to the series. I'm glad to see not much has changed from a writing sense from season 1 to 2. I'm really excited to see where the season's gonna go from here. One of Edward's cattle cars breaks loose, and Gordon and Henry make fun of him, saying that cows are nothing to worry about. Only for the two to worry about cows when one is on the line. This is a pretty good one. I love Gordon and Henry's egos then being demolished by a cow. Plus, the faces Gordon and Henry make in this one scene is really funny. Good episode. Edward was misinformed that Thomas wouldn't be in today and that Bertie was taking Thomas's passengers to him, and Bertie has to chase Edward down to make sure his passengers get on the train. This is a really good spotlight episode for Bertie. It shows the determination that the little bus is gonna have. Even if it feels like he's never really gonna manage it, he can still do the work well on his own. Really good here. Trevor the traction engine is introduced, and Edward saves him from scrap. I'm not all that into this episode. Trevor's a really uninteresting character to me, so... James complains about Trevor's age, but after a train trip, well, some boys play with his brakes, and he goes out of control. So it's up to Edward to save James. A very good episode here. It really proves that Edward, no matter how rude you are to him, will always stand up for you no matter what. Plus, it's good to see James actually respect his elders. He really needs to start doing that more often. It doesn't really work out for him when he doesn't. Trevor proves how useful he is to Thomas. Yep, another episode, alright. Not bad or anything, just Trevor doesn't do anything for me. Percy messes with James and Gordon. They don't like that, so they play a trick on him and getting him confused on signals, which seems to be a running trend now that I think about it. Good episode here. James, Percy, and Gordon bounce off each other really well. It's also funny when James is just smugly watching all the engines do their work. Well, I guess he got his comeuppance. His face falls off here. We're finally at the introduction of Duck, one of the best characters. Him and Percy are belittled by the big engines, so Duck takes a stance and gets back at them. Enjoyed it a lot. Duck shows that he takes no nonsense. Also, him and Percy are a really good duo. Sodor is starting to get filled out more. Here we have Harold the helicopter. Percy immediately can't stand him, though it's justified because Harold's an egotist. So him and his driver plan on racing the helicopter, and lo and behold, they win and show it off to Harold. I really enjoyed this one. I like that Percy has his own equivalent to Bertie, though instead of being a friendly rival, it's more of an aggressive rivalry. Great episode. Thomas's brakes are not working the best, so he has to stop earlier than he usually does. But his driver forgets this detail once, and Thomas is on the run, and it's up to Harold, another driver, and whoever to stop him. A really fun episode here. It's a unique way to do a runaway for this series. Percy describes the events of a story that have not happened yet? Huh? But Percy lets the fame go to his head because he sees a danger sign and wants to pass it. Thomas tells him not to, but Percy isn't listening, so he asks the trucks to help him, although they help him a little too well and he's submerged into the ocean, and Henry makes fun of him, like he should. To me, this episode's the definition of a classic Thomas episode. Character makes a mistake and they pay dearly for it. Gotta learn the hard way sometimes. Also, there's Diesel. That's really nice foreshadowing for what's coming up next. We finally have our first diesel engine on the island. Duck plays a trick on Diesel, and well, it doesn't go very well for him because Diesel now embarrasses himself to the island, and, well, he swears revenge. Really good introduction for Diesel. This is quite a good introduction for Diesel here, and is a fun little pairing with Duck, somebody who's also prideful and pretty egotistical himself. Him and Diesel aren't too different, and seeing them clash is really fun. I really enjoyed this episode. So, let's see where the next part brings us and how Diesel's gonna handle this. Diesel's out for vengeance now, as now that Duck has made him look like a fool, he's gonna tell lies to the trucks and blame Duck for all of it. And the big three engines now can't stand Duck, and Duck is forced to run away in disgrace. Man, this episode's pretty timeless now that I think about it. But this is a fantastic middle episode. It really shows don't mess with Diesel or else. And it was nice to see an episode like this at a kids show, especially like a really young kids show, where the villain actually wins. The hero doesn't always come up on top. So let's see how it concludes with... Duck is now working with Edward on his line. However, a runaway train happens during the workforce, and Duck has to slow it down to prevent any massive collisions. And this is a fantastic conclusion to this arc. Before this, Duck was just as egotistical as Diesel, as I had mentioned. The only thing that makes him different is when push comes to shove, he will do the right thing and do what's good. And he really earned the trust back by doing the most noble thing he possibly could. Just a fantastic runaway episode, and it really defines Duck's character journey through this little trilogy extremely well. A phenomenal trilogy of episodes here. This bigger story was definitely worth telling. I love it. Thomas learns the lesson it's okay to be late sometimes. It's a pretty boring episode. Coming after the last few really doesn't help this one. It's just there. But it's not bad though. Donald and Douglas are finally added to the cast. In their debut episode, Topham only wanted one of the engines, and he plans on sending one of them away. However, both cause misfortune and accidents for Topham, and he's really left unsure what to do with them. There's also the spiteful brake van, who's causing trouble for everyone's train he's a part of. Don't worry though, Douglas is gonna take care of him. This is a really good introduction for Donald and Douglas, though I'll admit this episode kind of crams a lot because they lacked an adaptation to do, but still, very good episode. This scene's kind of morbid. Well, nothing has changed. One of the twins is gonna get removed. However, Percy talks to Edward about this, and Edward says he needs a deputation. However, he doesn't realize what that means until it's too late, and everyone tells Percy to go do it. And thankfully, Topham decides, yeah, sure, I'll fork over another $1,000 for another engine. This is a very fun episode here. I love the snow aesthetic, and I like the fact that everyone's trying to make sure Donald and Douglas can stay together. Great episode. Thomas won't stop boasting about how good he is on his line. Everyone's like, oh, it's only your driver. But he's like, nah. But then he tries to go without his driver, and well, he crashes into a woman's house during their breakfast. Just the definition of a classic episode here. It's just really fun for Thomas, Percy, and Toby to bicker. Like, Thomas like, I don't need my driver. Then he does. I also love that the ending sets up for the next batch of episodes. I really like how forward-moving the show feels during this time. Love this episode. Classic. A new diesel engine comes to the island named Daisy to take over for Thomas's work. Only problem, she's lazy and snooty. Daisy's a really entertaining character here. I like this episode a lot. She is really fun, and this was a good introduction.
Is that rubbish? The rubbish turned out to be Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta.
Would you believe? Can't wait for that exchange to turn into an episode 30 years after this aired. I'm being serious. Percy is rough with some troublesome trucks and then gets into a crash. The crash looks pretty cool, but that's all I really gotta say. Oh hey look, Thomas is back. Bill and Ben are introduced. Well, okay, they were in Percy Takes a Plunge, but I don't count that. Anyway, Bill and Ben's trucks are removed, and it's stated that it was a diesel's fault, so they play tricks on the diesel. This is just a really fun episode. Bill and Ben are super entertaining characters, and seeing them mess with new diesel Boko was really enjoyable. Great episode to introduce the twins. At night, Gordon and Edward take passenger trains across the island. However, Edward's train went on the wrong line, and Gordon had to take the branch line. Bill and Ben bother Gordon, but then Boko comes in to save him. This is a pretty good episode here. I liked seeing Sodor at night. It looks very beautiful. And seeing Gordon go up against the twins was really funny. And I love the end where he starts to really respect Boko. Very good episode here. Bill and Ben are taking tourists around the clay pits, and it's Edward's job to take them home. However, it's starting to rain, and things are not going as well, and all the big engines tell Edward that he can't do it. However, Edward perseveres and proves he can. What a fantastic episode right here. Edward proves himself to the big engines and finally sticks it to them, showing his worth to the railway. And, thankfully, it ends on a respectful note. Everyone lets Edward rest in peace. How do you honestly top this episode? Oh, so that's how. So Percy is told a ghost story, however Thomas doesn't believe it. Percy wants revenge, so after crashing into some lime, Percy dresses as a ghost to scare Thomas. What can I say other than fantastic? The lighting, the atmosphere... Just such a wonderful looking episode with a fun, creepy atmosphere. You can bet I watch this episode every year on Halloween, and seeing Thomas and Percy clash is fun, and I love the fact that Toby is very willing to help him get in on this. This is just one of the best episodes in my opinion. Easily my favorite of the whole show so far. Percy's ego is flown through the roof, and Thomas isn't having it. It's causing Percy to get late, and he's, well, mad. Percy goes back to doing his work. Unfortunately, some treacle, I think it's called, falls on him, and then some hay, and then, well, he starts looking like a green caterpillar with red stripes. What can I say? Just a really fun Thomas and Percy rivalry episode. I love the part where Thomas and Toby just laugh at Percy. Damn, Toby's got no loyalty. I love it. Thomas is requested to get a Christmas tree. However, he gets stuck in the snow on his way, and Donald and Douglas end up saving him. Yup, another pretty good Christmas episode here. It's charming and sweet, though I definitely would say there have been better episodes this season. Good way to end, though. So I think it's pretty obvious to tell that I love Season 2 of Thomas and Friends. It is such a big improvement on the first season in almost every way. Adds more of Sodor's lore to it. The episodes are just 10 times more interesting. And it's just so engaging to watch. Sure, there were a couple episodes in here that were underwhelming. Some I'd probably say were underwhelming compared to Season 1's weaker episodes. But, like, the best really outweigh a lot of Season 1's best. I absolutely love this batch of episodes. But let's see if they can keep that up, as there was a big 6-year gap in between Seasons 2 and 3. That gap mainly seemed to have been caused by both bringing Thomas to the States with stuff like Shining Time Station, along with other countries, but also the production of David Mitten's passion project, Tugs. So, Thomas comes back finally in 1992. Let's just see if the show benefits from the time off the air or not. It's a cold day on the island of Sodor. Percy wants a scarf, hoping it helps him get warm, but he then gets into an accident and then has Topham's trousers wrapped around him like a scarf. This is a really fun premiere to swing us back into Thomas after all these years. Classic Thomas and Percy little rivalry here, and seeing Percy be the little cheeky douche he is, always a pleasure. Love this one.
Engines don't wear scarves. Engines with proper funnels do, replied Percy. You've only got a small one.
It's gonna rain badly on the island of Sodor, and Percy promises Thomas that he's gonna bring the school children back home safely during the rain. However, the rain is quite strong, and Percy gets submerged into a little puddle of water. However, Percy is more than willing to push through, although with a little help from Harold, even if he doesn't want to admit he needed it. This is just as classic as a Percy episode gets. I love that Percy is genuinely concerned about keeping his promise to Thomas, and I love Percy and Harold's interactions here. Just an amazing episode. Season 3 starting strong. James gets to pull Gordon's Express, and he boasts about it to Toby. However, Toby then breaks down and James has to push him. Nothing mind-blowing, but it's a pretty fun episode. I love seeing James and Toby clash. The ending's great.
Ha ha! Said James.
A famous engine visits the island of Sodor, and Gordon is jealous and he tries to beat his speed record. However, his dome flies off while doing it, and now he is completely embarrassed. Just a classic Gordon episode here. He lets his own ego get the better of him, and now he looks like a weird engine without his dome. I also just find it funny that this visitor doesn't even talk to Gordon, and Gordon still feels the need to one-up him. Good episode. Duck, the awesome character he is, finally gets his own branch line for all his hard work. Him and Donald are working on it, but Donald grows to not be able to stand Duck. So Duck and his driver decide to pull a ploy and put a duck in his tanker. At first it's a little embarrassing, but Donald really starts to grow to enjoy the duck's company. And this is a really sweet episode. I'm glad to see Duck get his own part of the line, and I like giving Donald more characterization away from Douglas. This is really good, honestly. It's better than I remember it being every time I watch it. Okay, we're on our first of many non-railway series adaptation stories. So Thomas gets bumped off the rails. Yeah, not a good way to start these. This episode's really uninteresting. Thomas is sent to pick up a Chinese dragon at the docks, and Percy is left on a siding because he's in a weird position. Thomas accidentally scares Percy, and Percy cowers of a dragon the whole day. There's also some good continuity with Percy boasting about his ghostly trick to Thomas. I really enjoyed this one. The horror parts were really fun, and this was the nice culmination of Thomas and Percy becoming friends for real. Good episode. Diesel returns to the island of Sodor to duck in Percy's dismay. However, he's really not all that helpful with the extra workload he came by for, and he's sent away again anyways. It was good seeing Diesel again, though he's not as smart as he was last time. He's just causing more destruction. But maybe just after losing last time around, he's just like, screw it, I'm gonna be violent. Still a good episode. Oh boy, Henry's Forest, Wilbur Awdry's first issue with the TV series. Now, is this episode bad? Oh heavens no! Well, yes, I understand this episode breaks Rule 55, and I understand why Wilbur would be a little upset. I love this one. It's about Henry's love for this forest, and when he sees it get teared down, it makes him get sad. Over time, he's not sure if anything can get better. This is the first time we really got to see Henry's more emotional side in the series, and I love to see that he does care about things. And I just love his connection with the forest so much, not to mention the forest that is beautiful. This is one of my favorite episodes of the season, for sure. I love this one. Well, it's very musty on the island of Sodor. Gordon gets mud all over him, but for some reason he doesn't want it cleaned off. This seems really out of character. So James pulls the express, but oh no, he can't get up the hill, and then Gordon helps him. I will say it's really nice to see Gordon help James, but other than that, this episode's just kind of there. It's not horrible or anything. I at least like the setting of seeing it in the fall, but the episode's pretty average.
Bah, said Gordon, and angrily let off steam.
James lies about having an important train to pull, but he's caught on his lie and then has to do freight work. Eventually, though, he does get an important job after all. This story definitely works for James. He always wants to feel important, but hey, after real hard work, he finally gets the chance to be. It works. Thomas and Percy need to prove the importance of the mail train, so they work their hardest all night to make sure that everybody gets their mail on time. Very classic episode here. I love the nighttime setting, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. I especially love that we return to Percy and Harold's rivalry here. Very good episode. I know I'm speeding through a lot of these episodes, but it's not because there's bad, it's just there's a lot of episodes to talk about here. But still, really good one here. Love it. Bertie tells Thomas how bumpy the roads have become. Later, James tells Thomas a lie so that he'll do his work for him. Then he gets into a really cool crash, and then it all connects in a pretty forced way. This isn't a bad episode or anything. I like that it shows Thomas's reliability, but I think it's a very messy episode. I like the frog at the end. A new Diesel named Mavis is giving Toby trouble at the quarry. She tries pulling some trucks up a hill, but she doesn't stop in the right place and gets stuck. Toby reluctantly then has to help her, and good episode here. I love seeing Toby clash with a modern Diesel as the old steam engine he is, and I like Diesel's appearance in this episode as well. And Mavis is just an entertaining character. Excited to see where this goes. Mavis wants the trucks to push her across the limit. However, Toby ends up taking the trucks, and he ends up getting in trouble instead, nearly falling off a bridge. So it's time for Mavis to step up and prove that she can be really useful. It's a really good character redemption here for Mavis, truly proving that yes, she can be a really useful engine. And the best part about it? Mavis keeps this for the rest of the show. Well, I'm glad someone gets to be the exception. Very great episode. Edward and Trevor help promote the Vickers farm party. It's fine. Nothing mind-blowing, nothing horrible. Just there. Oh boy, episode 69. Oh, and hey, look, it's pretty good. So James gets stung by a bee and tries everything to get the bees off the side of his boiler. It's just a really funny episode here. I love that James has this big red nose the whole episode, and desperately is trying to see him get the bees away from him is just really entertaining. And I love the little nicknames Duck will give him, being like, "You're the bee's knees." Tonally, so far, this season's been a bit more varied than some of the others, and I really like that. Episodes feel very unique here. It makes the watch experience fun. Oh man, we're all at sea already? This is one of my favorite ones. Duck dreams about what's beyond the horizon. However, after a job trying to save a man, Duck realizes the importance of being a steam engine, and what can I say other than this episode is a literal masterpiece? A, it's gorgeous. B, I really like the use of Harold here, with Duck being all giddy about where Harold can go. And I just love how Duck accepts his place and how, well, he learns that he's useful here. Sure, he'd love to see what's beyond the horizon, but being a steam engine's great. One of the best in the whole show. Bill and Ben accidentally bump into each other during a wrong turn, and now the two can't stand each other, and they fight, and it's kind of uninteresting, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not horrendously horrible or anything, but it doesn't really do anything that interesting. Gordon is afraid that all the steam engines are going to get replaced by diesels. And hey, we even get to see Flying Scotsman. But then the episode completely shifts and it's about Henry complaining that he doesn't have any tenders. This adaptation was really botched. I would have loved to see the scene where Scotsman and Gordon could find. But I like the ending though, it's pretty funny. Okay, so I think we all know this episode is, like, amazing and one of the best in the whole show, but, like, come on, I can't not talk about it. Douglas saves an engine named Oliver and brings him back to the island of Sodor. What can I say other than I just love this episode? I love that they tie this into Douglas's fear of being scrapped and abandoned, and it's just awesome to see a steam engine save another one from certain doom. One of my favorites. I always feel like this episode kind of gets forgotten in discussion, but to be fair, Oliver's last episode was way better, so... But I do really like this one. Oliver's ego gets the best of him, and now he thinks he's invincible after Douglas helped them escape the scrapyard. However, it all goes to his head and it comes crashing down on him, literally. This is a really good episode to show that even when you're at your best moments, you can still make a big mistake and fool yourself. I love this one, too. A bus named Bulgy is giving Tuck trouble on the Great Western Line. He lied to his passengers that he can take them through a shortcut, and then he gets stuck under a bridge. Very fun episode here. Bulgy's a very funny character, and putting him next to Duck, who values passengers dearly, makes it really entertaining. Great episode.
Yeah, boo snubs.
Bill and Ben are sent to work on the main line, but they're tricked by the trucks and embarrassed badly. However, a cave-in is happening in the clay pits, and Bill and Ben save everybody. This is a really good redemption story compared to the weak episode that was One Good Turn. Bill and Ben proving that, yeah, they're jokey and juvenile, but they'll do what's necessary at the most dire times. A really good episode for the twins.
Here, you're on the main line now. Actually, Gordon, giggled Ben, when we saw you, we thought this was the scrapyard.
James and Percy bicker and complain all day, trying to prove who's more useful. Well, it turns out neither are, as both fail to get each other's jobs done. It's whatever. I like the part where Percy gets hit by fruit. That's funny. Another Christmas episode. Well, unless you live in America, but we're not talking about that. Thomas and Percy have to save villagers from the snow. A really fun episode here. I love the aesthetics of this one a lot, and I especially enjoyed the dialogue between Thomas and Percy. Great way to end off Season 3. Season 3 was amazing. What else can I say? It's easy to see why this is a lot of people's favorite season. It's visually the most gorgeous season yet. We get a good variety of characters. No one really feels left out this year. Just about everything in this season really clicks for me. Again, a few weak episodes, but 1 or 2 episodes I'm so about. It doesn't compare to anything when you got hits like Escape, All at Sea, Henry's Forest. I could really go on. But now, let's see if Season 4 can keep up the quality. There wasn't as big of a gap, it was only 2 years this time. So let's see how good Season 4 is 2 years after Season 3. Thomas tells the story about 3 little engines named Duke, Stort, and Falcon, and how they inevitably separated. This episode right here is the definition of a perfect introduction. It gives us a brand new, fresh look at the island of Sodor without the baggage of Thomas and his friends, and leaves you feeling very sad when you see Duke in that shed alone. What a fantastic way to start. One of my favorite episodes of the whole show. Duke is just amazing. I love him. Thomas now tells the second bit of the story, where Duke is finally found and reunited with Stort and Falcon. While not as strong with introducing new concepts like the narrow gauge engines the previous episodes did, this episode's still sweet. I absolutely love it. It was just so sweet seeing Duke, Stort, and Falcon reunite. Season 4 is starting really good. Another story from Thomas. This time he tells the tale of how Stort fell off the side of a ledge and Duke saved him. Just a really great episode here, what can I say? It just shows how great of a character Duke is. In spite of how rude Sir Handel is, he stands up for him no matter what. I love this one. So I think it's become obvious I love Duke, hasn't it? Another story about Duke, but Thomas doesn't tell it this time. Huh, that's weird. Duke is pulling a train, however, he's not doing it as well because he's getting old. Stort and Falcon help him, though Falcon inevitably breaks away, and Stort is becoming a bit of an egotistical douche about it. However, Duke ends up sticking it to Stort when he pushes him and makes it look like he's the one pushing the train. Man, Duke is just such a fun character. I love how far he's willing to go on these kind of things. So this is the last appearance of Duke ever. Now I'm sad. Good episode, though. Stort and Falcon are now officially renamed Sir Handel and Peter Sam respectively. Skarloey is old and in the sheds, waiting for something to do while Rheneas has been gone. Meanwhile, Sir Handel had taken a train, but the coaches bumped him and he went off the rails. So Skarloey decides he wants to take the passenger train. It's a bit of a tough journey, but he does make it in the end and proves to himself he's still very useful. It's just such a great episode. I love Skarloey. He's so kind, he's sweet, lovable, and I just love the amount of respect he gets at the end. Season 4 has just been so strong so far. I love it. Peter Sam and Sir Handel meet Skarloey for the first time, but I thought they already met by the beginning. Oh, whatever. Sir Handel just refuses to do work all day. That sounds kind of uninteresting, but thankfully they kept it very entertaining because he's such a jerk and he's so adamant about his ways. Even Gordon finds it shocking. I love this one. Due to Sir Handel's accident, Peter Sam has had to do more work than ever. However, Henry isn't having it, and he's afraid of the little steam engine getting late, though he nearly is after leaving behind the refreshment lady, only to realize that Henry was messing with him the whole time. I like that we show off a little bit of Peter Sam's naivety, and I think it's just really funny for Henry to mess with him. It's a good one here. A new diesel named Rusty is introduced. Okay, so anyway, Gordon tells Sir Handel that he can just lie about being sick and that can get him out of work. Yes, Gordon really did this again, come on. So Peter Sam takes on Sir Handel's jobs, only to get into a massive crash because the trucks think he's Sir Handel and they wanted to get revenge on him. Man, poor Peter Sam, just look how sad he is here. But still, this is a good episode. I like the crash a lot, and Sir Handel, like usual, was very funny. Also, Rusty was introduced. He's cool. Duncan is introduced. He does rock and roll on the rails and gets stuck in a tunnel. This is a pretty funny episode. Duncan doing rock and roll on the rails is a pretty funny concept to me, so I enjoy it quite a bit here.
If it happens again, he ended ominously, I shall find ways to cut you down to size. In other words, your career is on the line. Need I say more?
Duncan, the rebellion he is still upset to hear Diesel's on his line. James then tells him that he can do a boycott and shoo him away. Not only does this fail, but Duncan gets into an accident. Rusty doesn't want to save Duncan at first, honestly who could blame him, but after realizing passengers are in trouble, the little Diesel decides to save him, and Duncan realizes, hey, Rusty can be cool sometimes. It's really nice to see the two reunite, and to see Duncan actually try to become a better engine. I enjoyed this episode quite a bit, and it was nice to see rivals become friends. Well, there's no Christmas episode this season, but we do have a winter episode, of sorts. While there is a lot of it that takes place in winter, we also get some fall, some summer. Really, all the seasons get some kind of attention here. And to give it credit, this is without a doubt the most beautiful episode of the show up to this point. I think the way it goes through the styles makes it gorgeous. The story is pretty simple. After Trucks, Peter Sam's funnel gets destroyed, and he needs a new one. Though unfortunately he has to use a pipe drain, but thankfully he does gain a better funnel that helps him steam across the line much better. It was really nice to see Peter Sam finally get a victory after all his losses. But yeah, this episode is a visual beauty. I do think visuals alone really carry this one, but it's still got a fun Peter Sam story. I love this one. It's basically the narrow gauge equivalent of the Flying Kipper. After bragging non-stop about his new big wheels, Skarloey comes up with a plan to have Sir Handel go up against George, and the two have bickering fights with each other. This one is just really funny. I cannot get enough of George and Sir Handel teaming up against each other. I really like this one a lot. It's definitely one of the best of the season, just for the dialogue alone.
You swank around with your steamroller wheels, pretending you're as good as me.
Actually, I'm better. Goodbye.
Duncan won't stop grumbling about how he will not get polished like Skarloey. It's fine. It's got a few funny interactions with Topham, but overall, meh. Duncan won't stop grumbling, so Skarloey tells Duncan the tale of when Rheneas got his passengers through the rain. We've done this like 2 other times before. Man, Audrey really loved this plot trope. Thankfully, this episode is very good, so I see why he did. The rain looks fantastic in this episode, and I love Rheneas' determination to save his railway here. A stunning episode. And it was really nice to see Rheneas, one of my favorites of the season. A Bluebell line is opening up on the island of Sodor, and it needs an engine, so Rusty goes all the way to the mainland to save one. Yes, I know this one seems like a big retread of Escape, which it is, but does that really mean it's bad? As I mentioned last episode, retreading happens pretty commonly in this show, but I really enjoy this one quite a bit, honestly. It's really nice to actually see a diesel save a steam engine for once. It's very rare as we go on to get to see that. The visuals are as gorgeous as all of Season 4's are, especially the nighttime shots. And just in general, it's such a feel-good episode in my opinion, seeing Rusty save the Bluebell engine Stepney. And I love how it transitions into the next storyline we're getting. So, I know it's going to be unpopular for some, but I like this episode. Stepney is getting tired of his Bluebell wine and takes a trip to Sodor, and Thomas, man, I haven't mentioned him in a while, gets jealous in true Thomas fashion, though when Tim and Stepney speak, they get along. It's okay. I like they use Stepney to reintroduce the standard gauge engines. That's all I really gotta say, really. Stepney is taking a line of trucks. However, during a game, a ball falls into one of his trucks, and the players have to go after him to get his ball back. This is a really fun episode here. It introduced Caroline, who's a pretty neat character, and I also like the fun chase sequences here. It's really entertaining. It's Stepney's last day on the island of Sodor, and he has to spearhead a train with a very snobbish Diesel. Nobody likes him, but hey, he's proud of that, honestly. But he gets his comeuppance when he gets a bowler hat stuck in his injection pipe. Really good one here. Always love these episodes where the steam engines put the mean Diesel in their place. And I really liked seeing Stepney and Duck pull a train together and getting to see all the visual beauty. Well, good episode to conclude the Stepney saga. The circus has come to the island of Sodor, but some trouble might have been caused by it, as one of the elephants went rogue and messes with Henry. I enjoyed how unhinged the big three engines were at the beginning of this, and seeing the misfortune of Henry through the elephant was pretty funny. Carrying off the events from Season 3, the trucks now make fun of Oliver. It's getting worse and worse by the day, and Toad has an idea to regain the respect of the trucks through Oliver. Unfortunately, it doesn't go to plan, and Oliver rips apart Scruffy. What a great episode here. It finally shows, after Oliver was at his lowest point, he can build himself back up again. And Scruffy was a really fun antagonist here, and his comeuppance was perfect. Daisy returns, and she has trouble with a bull named Champion. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I like Daisy and the Bulls' rivalry here. It was nice to see Daisy again, at least. Yes, you have heard me talk for 100 episodes straight. Topham gets a letter from a little girl who wants to see all the major engines on the island of Sodor. Thomas has to train Oliver in his replacement time, but he then gets into a massive accident. But don't worry, he gets to London anyways. And while not the most deep plot or anything, it was really fun to see all the cast of characters come together and just hang out, and seeing them all go to London was really fun, and having them all idolized as these big, grand machines was awesome. Good way to celebrate 100 episodes, though I'll admit, I'm getting a little exhausted talking about these. I think someone else can cover the next one.
Paying pots and queens, or in the US, Thomas meets the Queen. There are two words I can describe this episode: comforting and beautiful. The episode starts strong with Thomas and Gordon puffing together to Tidmouth Sheds after having that wonderful alliance. I just love that with Thomas and Gordon. Sir Topham Hatt makes an announcement about the Queen visiting Sodor. And of course, James and Henry making a little argument on who's going to be taking the Queen. Oh, classic Henry and James. Of course, Henry is always going through some trouble. I love the scene with Thomas, Gordon, and the Fat Controller. You can tell that Thomas and Gordon want to be useful engines and want to help out. And of course, Sir Topham Hatt is a nice guy. For those who keep saying that Sir Topham Hatt is an evil guy. But he's a nice guy, and decides to give him a treat. Thomas will be shunting Gordon's coaches, and Gordon will be taking the Queen. And then we have a beautiful scene with all the engines getting everything ready, with that wonderful triumphant music by Michael Donnell and Junior Campbell. And then when Gordon arrives with the Queen, everyone had a wonderful moment. Percy, Toby, James, Henry, Gordon, Thomas, and Edward, they all had a wonderful moment in this scene. It feels like a conclusion to Thomas. All the main 7 characters from Season 1 together. It just feels like a culmination of Season 1. All the characters together. And it's just beautiful. George Carlin and Michael Angelis did a fantastic job as the narrators. And overall, this episode is just fantastic. One of my favorite Thomas episodes.
Yeah, I agree with everything that guy said. Henry is pulling the Flying Kipper yet again, though Duck is trying to help him up the mountain, but things don't go the greatest. This episode is visually gorgeous, not to mention it feels like a real steam engine come to life. This one is almost exclusively drawn by its visuals and prowess, but that's not always a bad thing. I really enjoy this one quite a bit, and plus the crash with Duck was pretty entertaining. I like how the visuals and cinematography are enough to keep me entertained. Toby's sad he won't be a special attraction, but then it becomes about Percy causing a crash with Bulstrode, and very disjointed. The crash was the only cool part. Last Railway series story for a while, and hey, I don't mind it. Percy runs over Tom Tipper's new bike, but it's fine because Tom Tipper hated it and wanted his van back. It functions. There's nothing wrong with it. It's okay. It definitely fell off a little bit by the end, but thankfully Season 4 was just as good as ever. It has some of the strongest highs in the series yet. Though I will say, I think Season 3 did a better job with individual episodes. I think 4 as a whole season is way better than 3. The narrow gauge and Stepney stuff just builds up so well. Admittedly, the main set of characters we've grown to know from the first 3 feel kind of like an afterthought this time, but even then, they still had a lot of very good episodes with them. Season 4 was amazing, might even be the best season. It and 3 are kind of like in a competitive sense for me. I don't know which one I like more, but still, they're pretty much tied in my head. Now let's get on to Season 5 with only another 2.5 year production gap. Let's see if the show can top itself yet again. It is so weird that it took them 5 seasons to introduce Cranky. Anyway, new crane engine introduced. He's annoying to Thomas and Percy. He falls down. Thomas and Percy have to help him. This is one of my favorite premieres. Not as good as Grandpa from last season, but this is a very strong second. It's really funny, it introduces an iconic character in Cranky, and everything about it's just so endearing. Absolutely amazing premiere to start the season with.
Help! Call the engines from inside the shed. I can't! Called Cranky.
A group of lorries come to the island of Sodor and try to help out with the work. However, they're very rude, and also end up becoming very efficient as they all get into accidents. This is a really good episode right here. The lorries are really fun characters, and I love that it proved the engines are irreplaceable. Great episode.
So what can a big engine really do?
Not speak to silly little green engines for a start, replied Gordon.
Ouch, Gordon. Gordon complains and fumbles about how bad the view at the new station is, but his brakes start to not work as well, and, well, he gets a better view, alright. What can I say? This is just a really fun episode. Seeing Gordon sulk all the time is really funny, and especially seeing him get what he deserves in the crash is awesome. Plus, I like the new station they made for him a lot. Great episode here. Classic. 108 episodes in, and Sir Topham Hatt finally gets his own episode. It's Lady Hatt's birthday, and he doesn't want to run late. However, misfortune follows him everywhere he goes. This one is just the definition of funny. Seeing Topham consistently get in more wild and wild situations just becomes funnier and funnier, and seeing him drive Thomas at the end was really awesome. What can I say? This is one of the most entertaining episodes of the whole show. Another banger.
Yourself a car, you're a disgrace to the road. Find yourself a scrapyard.
James, as always, boasts about his paintwork. However, there have been rumors lying around that trees have been landsliding into the rails due to the rain, and James has to take a goods train. Unfortunately, he runs into one of these and nearly gets into a crash. What an amazing episode here. James, as always, is really entertaining, and I love the part where Thomas saves him and doesn't even crack a joke. It's also really cool to know that the trees falling onto the rails is actually based on something that actually happened on British railways. Such a fun episode here, I love it.
Color's nice, James. Pity about your face, though, said a freight car.
Gordon really isn't working the best, and all the other engines tease him about gremlins. Then Topham wants Gordon to pick up a special visitor, But after that, things just kind of start to get a little random. Like, there's this whole dog that runs around. He runs into a bowl. It's not a bad episode or anything. It's really entertaining. But I think just compared to what we've had up to this point in the season, this one's a bit of a mess. It was really cool to see Dowager Hat for the first time, though. That character's fun. George is just being the absolute worst on the railway, causing mayhem for absolutely everyone. And I absolutely love this episode. Every little action George does against the engines is absolutely hilarious in this episode. And just every little crash and accident, just everything that could go wrong does, and it's so engaging. And the ending comeuppance with George was amazing. One of my favorite episodes of the season for sure.
I need to flatten little engines in the scrapyard, retorted George. Hillsdale End, said Percy. That's my home, replied Toby. That's why I like it, especially when you're there and not here saying I'm silly. Good night.
Percy helps Maithway try to win the Best Dressed Station Award, but then there is trouble with a ram. It's alright. Nothing bad. It's just okay. Percy is annoyed, thinking that too much work has been put upon him. Later, he's given the job to work at a mine, but accidentally pushes trucks too far into the mine, and a cave-in ends up happening. Thankfully, with a lot of quick thinking, Percy saves himself and his crew. This is one of Percy's best episodes, without a doubt. Percy's grumbling about putting upon too much work is just a little too true to life, and the cave-in sequence is one of my favorites in the series. Definitely one of Percy's best episodes. It's raining bad on the island of Sodor, and there's a worry something bad will happen. And it does, as the dam breaks, and Toby is on the ride of his life, hoping he, survives. What can I say about this episode? It's just so exhilarating the whole way through. It's dangerous, suspenseful, engaging, fun. The model crew have really been giving it their all on what episodes of Thomas can truly be. This is definitely one of my favorites of the whole show. I love this one. Henry is going down the old line, but something doesn't feel right. There's something spooky, eerie going on. And later that night, he has to go down there again, and hoping that the worst doesn't come to him. And, well, what can I say about this episode that no one else has? The visuals are phenomenal, the feel is just super eerie, and just everything about this episode literally works for me. Man, Season 5 has been on a hot streak. Almost every episode's been a banger up to this point. Definitely another season best for sure here. Bill and Ben are having trouble with work as always, but this time around Topham brings in a new diesel named Derek, and he isn't working the best though, but the twins don't understand that, and then have to pull their weight at the end. I really enjoyed this one. Alec Baldwin gave Bill and Ben the funniest voices, and I found them so funny as a kid and now. And also, I just think it's a really entertaining episode, and once again, I'm very glad to see Bill and Ben truly can pull their weight. Stepney is working in the quarry with Toby and Mavis. However, at night, it's time for him to go back home. But he gets lost and two diesels plan to scrap him. But don't worry, Topham saves him. Yup, another great episode. Gee, Season 5 is like the best season ever or something. The visuals are as good as Haunted Henry. The scope is entertaining. The atmosphere is eerie. Arian Burt's introductions are iconic. Great stuff. Topham finds a map to an old castle and wants to explore it. At night, Toby is scared of a ghost, but thankfully it's just a small engine. This one's pretty good. I like the visuals of this one a lot. It's got a fun adventure along with some creepiness, though the new character Bertram could be a little more interesting. He's not super bad, I mean he appears for like 20 seconds, but he feels more like a toy character. Still a good episode. Henry pulls the flying kipper again. Unfortunately, like usual, it doesn't go very well, as he submerges into the ocean. This is a good one here. I like the visuals a lot. It reminds me a lot of Fish, and it's got some fun interactions. Very good episode here. Love that shot of Henry in the sea.
My, Henry. I expect you'll have some fishy tales to tell.
Thomas and Percy find an old, slow coach. She is sad as she's going to be broken down soon. Later, James catches on fire, and Thomas and Percy have to put out another fire. And then, after the realization that the firemen don't have a home anymore, they use old slow coach as that home. This is a very well-constructed episode. I like how all these disjumbled plots connect, and it has all the creativity that I come to expect from Season 5. Very good one. The kids' playground needs repair, but in the meantime, the big engines are upset because Harold is taking a very important person around the island, and Thomas inevitably asks Topham what it's about. Pretty good episode here about needing to speak up against your authority and not just keep things in just because the other big engines don't want to. And it was fun seeing them squabble against Harold. I like this one. Oliver's tired of his main run and wants a change, and after an accident, he ends up being able to run the mail line, though he is late and ends up on a different line altogether, where he discovers an old station. Another episode I enjoy quite a bit. The visuals of this one are really good, as it always is in the nighttime. I always love seeing the expansion of lore through abandoned places. Good episode. Percy has to put together a wedding package for Mrs. Kindly's daughter. It's a very simple episode, but I really like a lot of the character moments, and honestly, this is just such a sweet episode. It's very enjoyable. I like it a lot. Sir Topham Hatt tries to take a holiday, but everything goes poorly for him. This is a great episode. I really enjoy seeing pretty much every major transport on Sodor. I love all the locations we visit. It's a lot of fun. Also, weird side note, but Andy and Clarabelle have been like really dirty and bruised throughout the season, and this episode randomly acknowledges that? That's just kind of weird to me. Still a great episode to watch. Hey look, they fixed the dam. Percy is tired of the same old, same old. It feels like every engine's having that conundrum now. So the trucks break away and a big surprise happens as he has to chase them down. Yeah, this episode's fine. Pretty standard runaway episode, though.
Hello, Percy. How are things? Asked Toby. Boring.
Mrs. Kindly is sad, and, well, everyone on Sodor tries their best to make her happy. What can I say? This is one of the most wholesome episodes of the whole series. I love everyone coming together just to make one old woman smile. Toad has forward-thinking views, and he wants to move forward instead of backwards for a change. Well, the trucks give him exactly what he wants, and he goes on the ride of his life. This is one of the most fun episodes of the whole show, period. The runaway is exhilarating, it's got a lot of really funny bits, and overall, it's just thoroughly engaging. I love this one.
He could only smile. A pond is the only place for a toad, I suppose?
Peter Sam had trouble with trucks and is shut up in the sheds. Duncan finds it funny, and Rusty tells him a story about an engine who fell into the ravine. A trick is later played on Duncan by his driver on the bridge, too. This is one of my favorite episodes of the whole show, really. I love that we get to actually see the full ghost story of the engine falling in, and I also love that there is interpretation to this episode. The ghost engine could be real, or it couldn't be. The music's on point, it's a gorgeous episode. Literally everything about this episode clicks for me. Without a doubt, one of my favorites of the whole show, and probably my favorite Duncan episode, period. Definitely a classic. A new quarry is opening up on the island of Sodor. Rusty finds the boulder pretty unnerving, and during construction on the new quarry site, the boulder falls off and chases the little diesel, and then chases a few of the other steam engines, and just causes havoc throughout. I know this episode can be a little controversial, and understandably so. It does feel a bit like a toy commercial episode, and it is a bit sillier than usual. But I love this episode. There's such a strong thrill to this episode. Like, any moment, that boulder could just run you down, and it's so dangerous. I also love the discussion on how much man should be involved with nature, and how much of a danger that can present. And I like that, like I said last time, you can infer either the boulder being alive or not. Leaves it up to interpretation. Honestly, this is my favorite episode of the whole show. I could watch it over and over again and not get enough of it. I love it. Thomas gets stuck in the snow, and Rusty tells him the story about how Skarloey got trapped in an avalanche and then got out. This is a really good episode. I love how the snow looks here. I really enjoy the avalanche scene, and it was really nice to get a Skarloey-themed episode after not seeing him too much this season. Very good one here. Good end to the season.
Then it happened.
Season 5, new best season. What can I say, really? Every episode was an absolute banger. I loved every single one of them. That thing I mentioned in Season 3 about tone, even better here. Almost every episode's a banger, and what can I just say? I love this season. Every single aspect about it. For me, at least, this is the peak of the show. Now would be the time I'd say I'm really excited to jump into the next season, but we got a little problem. Thomas and the Magic Railroad came out after this season. The film definitely has its fans. I don't want to say everybody on the planet hates this movie because that's far from true, but I'm kind of more ambivalent on this film. I think it does some things cool and a lot of things not so much. But we're not talking about it. I've already talked about Magic Railroad in other videos. But now we've got to go into the season that follows up this movie that made a few pretty odd decisions with the Thomas Lawrence story. Will some of Magic Railroad's weird oddities be in Season 6? Or was this movie just a fluke and the show is going to be as good as ever? Let's find out as we jump into Season 6. Oh, before we start Season 6, I want to make it clear, using the 4x3 print. I know this was the first season shot in 16:9, but I wanted to keep it consistent because the first 6 episodes are kind of wonky with the 16:9 4x3 thing. And as a whole, I kind of just like how Season 6 looks a little more, and the website I was using just had all the episodes in 4:3, easy to download, so we're just gonna go with it. Cool? Cool. A new Diesel named Salty comes to the island of Sodor and is forced to work at the quarry with Bill, Ben, and Mavis. He doesn't really like it as he sees himself more as a dockside Diesel, but he puts in all the work he can, and thankfully it does pay off as Topham lets him work at the docks. This is thankfully a really good episode right here. Being after Magic Railroad, it doesn't seem like too much is different. The color palette's a little uglier, but the episode is still thankfully very entertaining, and Salty is a really likable character who I'm excited to see more of. Great episode to start off the season. A new engine arrives to the island of Sodor. His name is Harvey. The engines don't really like him though, because he looks different and weird. But he proves that his weirdness is pretty helpful. It's fine. It's a good moral to teach kids, but it's not really done very interestingly. Also, there's this weird point where Edward's out of character, but still, this isn't a bad one. It's okay. After causing an accident in Brendam Docks, Cranky, Bill, Ben, and Salty are all trapped there for a day. Very simple story, but honestly, this one is just really funny. Salty's interactions with Cranky are hilarious. And I like how Bill and Ben are egging him on just to annoy Cranky. This is a really good episode. I'm glad they still have their humor in check.
Nope.
Definitely one of the funniest episodes in the series. Favorite episode of the season so far.
One was hurt.
Set my ears, wailed Cranky.
So for the first time since Season 3, Percy and Harold have their rivalry yet again. Percy is upset because a signal is stopping him from delivering the mail. Harold is later sent in to grab the mail. Unfortunately, he gets into a crash because he carried too much of it. And this is a really enjoyable episode, I feel like. I'm glad to see the Percy and Harold rivalry again, and I like the way the two make up. Good episode. One of Thomas's side rods breaks in front of a shed. His driver finds a lorry, they drives out to find a new one, and she's put back into steam. Meh, this episode's just kind of there. It's not horrible or anything, but Elizabeth is kind of annoying. I think it's funny that she's rude to Sir Topham Hatt, but she doesn't really do much for me. It's fine though. It's been foggy on the island of Sodor. A fogman named Cyril puts detonators around and makes sure to warn them of landslides. Topham wants to replace Cyril with a foghorn that is very loud and causes landslides. Cyril makes sure then to stop a crash between Thomas and Toby. This episode is pretty ahead of its time, with the commentary of machine taking over man's work. I enjoy the Misty Valley set they made here. It's actually the one time I think the gray works for season 6. And it's got a good moral of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Also, side note, it's kind of mean to think that Topham was going to fire this guy, isn't it? Wow, an episode not directed by David Mitton. Instead, we have Steve Asquith, as this is a backdoor pilot for the spin-off Jack in the Pack, which I've covered before. So, Thomas brings Jack to a construction site, and we really just meet a bunch of vehicles. However, in this case, that is not a bad thing at all. Characters like Oliver, Kelly, Byron are all really fun and entertaining characters. It's just entertaining to see them interact, really. I like this. Let's see where part 2 goes. Jack is still not sure about his place on the pack from the previous episode. However, Ned later knocks down portions of the bridge, and Thomas is coming by. In a burning moment of heroicness, Jack goes in and holds the bridge steady to make sure Thomas crosses, even if he breaks his front. This and the last episode are a really fun two-parter here. I love how it expands on Sodor's story, and we see a new cast of characters. And in general, it's just a really good story that redeems Jack. I like this one a lot. One of my favorites of the season. Oh boy, a winter holiday episode. That's not as exciting. Thomas has to pick up a Christmas tree, though he uses his terrible snowplow. Thought he got over that, okay. It breaks off, and he has to trudge through without his snowplow. It's a fine episode. Nothing super wrong with it, but it's definitely not one of the best or anything. Man, the show hasn't done a lot of things in 2 seasons now. We have a Donald and Douglas episode. The two crash into Trevor's little hay cart, and they both blame each other for it. They decide to separate, they miss each other, and then they come back together after an accident. I enjoyed this one a lot. It was nice to see a different side of the twins that we've never seen before. The two actually being able to kind of get into conflict with each other. And the resolution was really sweet. It's a good thing that they made up completely after this, and we'll never have to see a story like this ever again. Diesel is back yet again for the first time since season 3. What are the odds? He has to pull a long line of trucks while Henry is away, thinking he's the world's strongest engine, until the trucks dupe him. It's a fun episode, I like it, though I don't really understand how this is going to get rid of all the steam engines, Diesel. Oh wow, it has taken 6 seasons, but we have finally had a Halloween episode. Thomas, Percy, and Duck are sent to work on the smelter's yard on Halloween, and Percy is feeling scared. Thomas finds it a fun time to tease him, but he doesn't realize he's going too far, until he's left alone in the yard, and, well, he gets scared. But Percy thankfully decides to comfort him. The scary vibes of it are really cool, and I love just how unsettling the smelter's yard feels. And that feeling of Thomas when he's alone, you really see it. I also really love how Thomas and Percy come together at the end. It really shows how much growth the two have had since season 2. Man, season 6 has had some really good episodes still. I'm glad we haven't dipped too hard. Okay, so I think this might be my least favorite episode of the whole show so far. Percy helps Maithwaite in a best dressed station contest. However, he sees a mine break down, and now he becomes really scared. And then he sees lawn gnomes and screams dearly. It is gonna get worse from here, admittedly. This isn't gonna be the worst offender, but this is the first offender of Percy is scared of everything and screams about it. It's just the mine crashing down bit is really cool, admittedly, but Percy just being scared and whiny about everything really brings it down. It's not even that horrible in retrospect, but it's not really good. Definitely my least favorite of the whole show so far. Sucks too, we just had a really good Percy episode before this. Harry and Bert return. They make Percy a middle engine, and Percy is now sad. Later on, Henry pushes him into a coal tipper, and for some reason he gets blamed and not Henry. But then James gets a big ego, and then he becomes middle engine, and Percy helps him. Wow, this episode actually kind of sucks too. Uh-oh. Percy just really didn't get any justice here, so I don't know why he's so happy at the end. It also doesn't help that Harry and Bert now really suck compared to their first appearances where they were awesome. And just in general, this episode is just so unsatisfying. Like, nothing really paid off from what was set up. Like, Percy didn't get justice for the coal tipper. I guess you could say James, but even then he didn't really do anything that bad. I guess it was funny at the end, but other than that, this one's kind of bad. Thomas brings a hot air balloon to a station, and James suddenly thinks it's going to take all their passengers away. That's a really wild escalation. But this episode's fine. I like some of the panning shots. Thomas and James have some fun interactions, but overall, I did like the balloon crashing into James, though. That was pretty funny. It's winter on the island of Sodor, and the engines are talking about Jack Frost. After Percy's deliveries are done, he's left in a siding, and icicles start falling on his head, and James sees him and finds Jack Frost scary. Solid scary episode here. I like the fact it takes place in the snow. It's fun.
Scary Jack Frost.
Oh, come on, Baldwin. You can do better than that. Still an alright episode. Gordon gets upset with Salty after making fun of him in the docks. Then he is sent to pull a goods train and then gets into an epic crash. This crash is awesome, but as a whole, this episode feels like a less good version of A Better View for Gordon. It's not bad or anything. This one's still pretty entertaining, but that one was just much funnier in terms of how Gordon sulked and then got his comeuppance. Here it's a bit more monotone, but still, I like this one. It's good. Percy is tired of constantly getting dirty, so he tries to take on more clean jobs, but keeps getting dirtier. It all comes to a crashing point, get it? When he crashes into a chocolate factory. This is a pretty solid episode here. Feels very put upon Percy, and definitely not as good as that episode, but it's still got some funny moments.
Pudding, Percy, teased James.
Ben needs to fix up his buffers, and Bill complains he's not getting new ones. All this episode really is just Bill nonstop complaining for 4 minutes, and what also has to be the ugliest Thomas episode so far. This one sucks. What Good Turn was more entertaining than this episode. It's winter on the island of Sodor, and Toby runs into a farmer and has to save his lambs. This is a really good episode right here. The visuals of this one are actually pretty nice, and Toby going out of his way to save these lambs is really sweet. This is just a really strong episode from beginning to end.
Don't call me Dirty Percy.
The engines. Thomas gets to pull Alicia Body for a concert. However, he hears some squeaking in Annie and or Clarabelle. It turns out it was a mouse, and Alicia Body decides not to go inside them. So then she takes Percy's train instead. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just there. I'm getting tired of talking about mediocre Thomas episodes. Someone else can take the next one.
A big thanks to Spider-Fan for letting me talk about this episode. Believe it or not, this is my favorite Thomas episode. So, let's talk about it. The story is, Thomas wants to go fast like Gordon, and when Cranky fucks up in a good way for once, Thomas gets his wish, and well, fun ensues. What I love about this episode is it's nothing but pure fun. Both narrators are having a blast, and the music makes it crazy, but very fun. And my god, the comedy is perfect. The reactions of everyone as Thomas goes by is so funny.
Thomas flew by James and rocketed past Henry.
Especially Bertie.
Want a race, Thomas? Beat Bertie? Never mind.
It's all just so funny to me. It may be unrealistic, but honestly, who gives a shit? So yeah, this is my favorite episode for a good reason. It's pure fun, and that's what I love to watch. If you haven't seen it already, do yourself a favor and definitely give it a watch. It's definitely worth your time. Again, a big thanks to Spider-Fan for letting me review this episode. That said, back to you, Matt.
But he's still full of hot air, whistled James, and Gordon wheeshed away.
Aw man, you got to review a good episode. The big engines don't believe Edward is useful. I thought we resolved this plot. Well, it looks like they're back at it again. Topham comes up with a really convoluted plan to, well, get the engines to respect Edward, and it's just kind of lame, honestly, to see this regression happen. Like, it feels so unearned at the end when Gordon apologizes. Not the worst episode in the world, but a very underwhelming one. 3 narrow gauge episodes to end off the season. Duncan wants work at the incline to go faster, so he becomes careless and then gets into a massive crash. Yeah, it's an alright episode, but really, it doesn't do anything that any other Duncan episode hasn't already. Hey, wait, wasn't that the same scream from World's Strongest Engine? Somehow, Skarloey and Rheneas' line is in complete disrepair, and Topham threatens to close it down, and Rusty has to save it? Okay, this episode makes absolutely no sense. Like, isn't the Skarloey line a popular tourist attraction? Why is it getting closed down? It's just a standard Save the Railways story. It does have a few funny moments, like there's this one scene between Elizabeth and Rusty I liked, but overall, it's a pretty poor episode and really unremarkable. Duncan has to pull a pianoist. However, he gets obsessed with whistles after Peter Sam loses his, and he blows his whistle like a rocket. And then he has to use the pianoist to somewhat whistle around. It's a fine episode. There's nothing really wrong with it. The part where he blows his whistle like a rocket is kind of funny, but other than that, it's just kind of there. Okay, so I know I was harder on that season compared to the previous 5, but it all comes from a place of I just didn't think this season was as good as the first 5. On its own, it's pretty solid, but following up on 5 seasons in a row that built up on its lore, its storytelling, and refined its format more and more, this season just kind of didn't really do anything that impressive. It did have episodes I did really enjoy. I don't want to say this was an unenjoyable experience. I liked it more than I didn't. But it's hard to say that the season isn't a downgrade and that Magic Railroad's impact on the show isn't a little felt. But to be fair to this season, it was the first one worked on by staff that weren't Britt Allcroft and David Mitton, so obviously some changes were gonna happen. That's just a part of the process. Now, my biggest hope is that they learn from this season and improve upon it for the next, because the next one's kind of more like the last quote-unquote classic or traditional season, however you want to see it, before Hit Entertainment fully takes over, even though Hit also worked on Season 7 anyway. So, let's just jump into Season 7 and see if it's an improvement on this one. Really hoping it is. Whoa! Stop right there, Chief. Now, this was all supposed to be one big video where I covered all 584 Thomas episodes. But, fun fact, I record all these on a phone, so that wasn't really going to work with how long this video was going to end up being, so I've changed my plan because I'm tired of sitting on this video because I've been working on it for years now, and it's just going to be 4 multi-part videos. Don't worry, I mean, you're still getting hundreds of episode reviews. Like, this one is, like, the first 156, 157 if you want to count the Down the Mine pilot, but hey, at least you got the reviews now. Next part I'm working on as we speak. We'll be covering Season 7 through 12. And if you're upset that I'm not covering Season 7 with the first 6, sorry, honestly, it divided easier when you divide them into like 6 season pairs for like a 4-parter. So that's why it's divided like that mainly. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this first part. I'm really excited to get out part 2. Trust me, I would like this done more than any of you could possibly imagine, because this has been a bit grueling. But I enjoyed making it. Don't take that the wrong way. And you are getting the every episode ranked in the final part, part 4. We'll go from worst to best through every episode in the whole show. I'm not doing an episode ranking here because it's 1/4 of the show, but I will do a season ranking real quick if it kind of wasn't obvious already. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 and 4 possibly changing, but right now I'm feeling season 4 more. And hey, all of the seasons here are pretty good. Even if I was meeting to 6, not a bad season. And trust me, whatever mean things I say about 6, just know in the back of your head, I'm going to be covering a bunch of seasons way worse than it not too long from now. I hope to see you all next time for when we get to part 2. I'm really excited for you all to see that. And hey, please subscribe. You know, we're getting close to 2,000 subs. Totally would be awesome to do it while this whole project's coming out. And we'll probably do a Q&A to celebrate whenever we do. Thank you all for watching, and take care.